making for return appearances. Good morning, prosecutor.
Good morning. We're really looking forward to Saturday night and my being way beyond my comfort zone. Really, live on stage. Oh my God.
I just occurred to me that you have a Dalmatian because don't you feel like America's, firemen and women? Because we need a legal analysis every 20 seconds for something Donald Trump has done, right?
Never thought of it that way, but as soon as you said it this morning, I was like, yeah, that is how we feel. Mm-hmm. It is amazing how many issues we could talk about. Every week it's a question of how many, things should we disband and what should we talk about in the few minutes we have. It's horrible.
It seem like the Trump criming industry, though, seriously, is one that just never ends. Like MSNBC or I Call, you guys slide down the fire pole to get back on TV to explain something, the legality of something, and his presidency is over. But this just goes on, right?
Yeah, I thought we would stop being so busy once he was out of office. Who knew that he'd commit even more and horribler crime? Is that a word? Horribler?
Yeah, horribler.
Crime.
Sure.
More horrible crimes.
Yeah.
Out of office and threaten our democracy. I'm into the Election Count Act reform right now. I think that's one of the most important things we can do to preserve democracy is to make sure that corrupt, rogue governors don't certify who they want to be the president instead of who the people of their state voted for, and that could happen.
Right. Let's get to that in a second, but I have to ask you about this whole special master thing. So Trump's legal team Monday night resisted a request to elaborate on his claims around declassifying documents recovered last month from Mar-a-Lago in a filing to the court-appointed special master that Trump requested. His attorney said the time and place for making such a disclosure would come in a motion in a criminal trial as an effort to recover his property. Otherwise, the special master process will have forced the plaintiff to fully and specifically disclose a defense to the merits of any subsequent indictment without such requirement being evident in the district court's order. So I explain legally what he is. He's shot himself in the foot again, hasn't he? Like, he's the one that demanded a special master. The judge granted this ridiculous request. Now the special master is saying, okay, prove it that you declassified these documents, and explain to us legally what's happening.
Well, legally, I can't explain it because it's inexplicable legally. It has no merit. First of all, there should have never been a special master appointed because there's no factual or legal grounds for it. But your point about how bad his lawyers are, that they got him into this, that they let him, as you said, shoot himself in the foot because he makes a request and then it's granted and it's exactly what he doesn't need or want. Mm-hmm. In order to defend what he asked for, he's going to have to do that. And otherwise, Judge Deary, who is the special master, and is a former, I guess he's a senior status judge, so he's still a sitting judge, can say, you're denied this. If you don't prove to me these are declassified, but I would go even further and say, even if he were able to make this argument, which is ridiculous, that he magically declassified things without any formal process, even declassified, these documents are a threat to our national security, and therefore it is illegal for him to possess them in the same way as if they were classified. Secondly, President Biden can reclassify them. He has the power to do that. So it doesn't matter if he declassified them. All Biden has to do is say, they're classified, they threaten our national security.
Yeah.
So it's all ridiculous, and it was bad lawyering. It's sort of like in lawyers, you have to play chess. You have to see 2 steps ahead of yourself. You can't just do what's right in front of you. And he doesn't. He just does whatever his emotions say to do.
But I mean, speaking of bad lawyering, Jill, isn't that exactly it? Like, as lawyers, you're not supposed to insinuate things, right? They sort of insinuated that he had declassified the documents without really saying so or making that actual claim, because that would be fraudulent, wouldn't it? If he, in fact, as we all suspect, didn't declassify anything.
It would, and they have to be careful to represent facts, not just stuff that they can never prove in court. It's just, eventually, if this ever got to a trial of any of the counts that are set forth in the warrant, or any of the others that are possible, because it's not just those 3 statutes that he violated. There could be false statements. There could be conspiracy, or ordinary conspiracy under Title 371. I think there's a lot of stuff that could be going on, and in a trial, all of that is going to come out, and he's going to be really sorry for all the things he said and did. But he's been very careful, Stephanie, to do all of his lies to the public, not to the courts. He never filed any written statements in his impeachment trials. He avoids appearing and claims the fifth when the consequences of lying would be perjury and going to jail. He says it to the people who believe him, who don't care that he's lying.
Yeah. So what happens next now with this? What's just happened with the special master? What is the deadline, and what happens next?
Well, the deadline has been set as November 30th, which is sort of bad because it's too far out. I think that it's quite likely that the stay request for the 100 pieces of paper, the 100 documents that are classified, will probably be granted, and that the national security risk assessment can continue with the FBI looking at those documents, and also people from the intelligence community looking at it, so that won't be held up. I think ultimately this is a speed bump. It is not a roadblock. Yeah. This will end up getting all the documents that were taken legally under a search warrant, will be used as evidence against the president. Yeah. And remember, even the unclassified ones are violations of the Presidential Records Act.
Yeah. So now the report from the New York Times that, White House lawyer Eric Hirschman specifically warned Trump that he had no right to hang on to these sensitive government documents after he left office. So your pal, Barb McQuaid of Sisters-in-Law, the fantastic podcast. Yep. She said, asked about the legal ramifications for Trump over those allegations. She said it's excellent evidence that one of the essential elements of the offense when it comes to the Espionage Act and the retention of government records, which is willfulness.
Right.
So that is an important element, right? That he obviously willfully did this, that he was told he shouldn't do this.
He was told he shouldn't. He was told what the consequences were. We knew he knew the documents were there because they were in his, or at least some of them were in his desk drawer with his passport, which is why the passport was taken, was to prove that it was his drawer, that it was his knowledge. But Eric Hirschman's testimony would be very, very devastating, and it's not rebuttable. I mean, he can say, oh, I never heard that, but who's going to be believed in that circumstance when you know that he has the documents, you know that his other lawyer, Bob, submitted a paper saying there are no others, when in fact, of course, the FBI in a few hours was able to find dozens of boxes of documents that should have been turned over. Yeah. So I think the case is, in my opinion, is inevitable that he will be indicted for this. I cannot imagine a government ignoring these kinds of crimes. And these are the kind of crimes that people have been indicted for before.
Yeah. And Fani Willis just said there's going to be indictments. People are going to jail. Trump reacted to that. The fact that he's threatened violence means he thinks he's going to be indicted. You know, which of those three, I mean, between January 6th, the espionage, and Fani Willis, which do you think is the most imminent? Which is the most dangerous? Do you think there will be justice in all three?
I think there could be justice in all three. I think that because of the delay to November 30th, that moves that investigation a little bit back. Now, it's possible that Deary is seeing through all this nonsense and is going to act really faster than we are expecting, faster than the 30th. I just interviewed Andrew Weissman for iGen Politics, and he said 11,000 documents is so nothing. Right. It's so easy. I mean, we're used to dealing with terabytes of information in electronic records. So 11,000 documents can be reviewed very fast, and this can all be over. And he will say, there's no executive privilege. There's no attorney-client privilege. There is no personal ownership of these documents. They were all taken in violation of law. That's the end of it. Yeah. So it could be faster than November 30th. But I would say the Department of Justice has been very clear that it's not going to do anything that might influence an election. I do not think that rule applies here. Donald Trump is not on the ballot in November.
Yeah.
I think that there's no reason to hold off action against him just because he's backing certain candidates.
Yeah.
Too bad for them.
Thank you. And if, by the way, if the special master rules everything you just said, then I think the legal term is haha, nanny, nanny, boo boo. It's a legal term. So wait, you brought up the, this is the Liz Cheney-Zoe Lofgren, the Presidential Election Reform Act. Let's talk about that a minute. So that's, bipartisan. They rolled it out, aimed at preventing future attempts to overturn elections. This is an archaic law that governs the counting of electoral votes, which Trump and his allies sought to exploit to stay in power. So the bill would make clear the vice president's role in counting votes is simply ministerial, will raise the threshold for objecting to electors from one member of the House instead of to 1/3 of each chamber. It would require governors and states to send electors to Congress for candidates who won the election based on state law prior to Election Day. It's one of those things we never thought we'd have to do, but it literally is like part of Trump-proofing the presidency, right? We never thought we would see Nixon times 11 billion, did we?
No, and the hard part of this is trying to think what a devious criminal mind could come up with to evade the existing laws, to take advantage of any gaps in the law. Who would have ever thought that a state would consider a fake elector slate?
Yeah.
It's not something we would have ever thought of. So it gets a little bit scary that even with this improved Electoral Count Act, they may not have cured all of the potential ways around it. And this goes back to my time as an organized crime prosecutor, where no matter what the laws are, they could think of ways around them. And they would spend their time thinking about that instead of thinking about how they could make money legitimately. It's how can we cheat and go around the existing laws. So it's a little bit scary that we need this law. And it's even scarier that the law might not cure all of the potential risks that we can't think of and that criminals are thinking of.
Yeah. Well, speaking of mob, I mean, everybody's made the mob analogy to the little, Sopranos walk and talk at the golf course where there's no electronic listening devices. But quite seriously, Fani Willis has talked about using RICO, right? I mean, it is interesting that because he's so mobby, you have to think of mob laws to try and finally nail him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, RICO was established for the mob, but it has since expanded into other good uses, and this certainly would be one. You refer to that golf course scene where there's like a bunch of carts roaming around with more than 4 people per cart, and you can only have 4 people playing at a time. And what were they doing there? What were they talking about? It followed, if I'm not mistaken, a picture of him getting on a private plane to New Jersey with lots of cartons being loaded onto that. So what isn't in Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah.
What is now at Bedminster? And do we need a search of that property as well?
Right.
What's in the grave at Bedminster?
Yeah.
You got to wonder.
Thank you. I'm glad we have a real lawyer asking the same question you're asking. But that's what they're saying. They need more evidence than just seeing the boxes on the plane, right? You need someone to say those are classified documents he took with him or something, right?
Or presidential records. I mean, it's not just, we keep focusing on, because it's more dramatic to talk about classified records. But honestly, the Presidential Records Act, which is a result of Watergate, is one that says all of those documents belong to the American people. They're part of our history. They belong in a museum. They belong at NARA, at the National Archives, where they can be accessed by historians. They are not the property of the former president, period.
Right.
And so taking them is a crime.
Yeah. Here's evidence why you've decided to go slumming at the Save Democracy, Sexy Liberal Save Democracy tour, because the democracy hangs in the balance. This is what is at stake if Republicans take back power. Merrick Garland has been asked by more than 30 GOP lawmakers to give the federal prosecutor investigating Hunter Biden special counsel protections and authorities. Oh, my God. I mean,
oh, my God.
Yes. Your thoughts on that?
It'll end the same way that Durham has ended.
Thank you. That was right. All the noise around the John Durham investigation has ended with what it started with, nothing, right?
Exactly. It should be embarrassing. It should be a big deal that people should make of the fact that nothing was discovered, that nothing happened.
Yeah.
But it won't be. I mean, the Democrats haven't made as much out of the failures of the other point of view as they should have. And letting him go ahead after the improper appointment of him as a special counsel, I mean, that was done deliberately to let him continue after Trump left office. And fine, I'm glad it did, because now it proves the point. And in a way, the special master, Deary, is the same thing. It'll prove that there was nothing to it. And so if he can act fast enough that it's only a slight delay, big deal. Okay, it's over, it's done.
Yeah.
And, I think he can finish it faster than an appeal can be heard about the improper appointment. On the other hand, you don't want to have this as a precedent. So it may be worth appealing just to prove that it was the wrong thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Star of Stage Screen. Bringing the highbrow to the lowbrow experience that is Chicago's sexy liberal.
Yes.
I hope everyone will be there. I can't wait to see all the Steph heads at that show.
Yeah.
That would be so much fun to meet them all in person.
Yes, Harris Theater, right?
That's right.
SexyLiberal.com with your friend Jan Schakowsky. We cannot wait. We will see you in your delightful flat E this Saturday.
Yeah.
Nowhere near Wacker, but at the
No,
Harris Theater.
It is kind of near Wacker.
Oh, it is near Wacker.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, we'll see. We'll see.
Looking forward to it.
At least it's not in Oak Park, because there's no parking there. But